let's see. Alright, new game. Episode 1, Turnabout Trump. Showdown time. You lose. Eek! I seem to be in a bit of trouble. Something like that. Dead. Someone hit him. Hard. Me? Please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should it come to that. April 20th, 9:37 a.m. District Court, Defendant Levy number 3. Hey, Shot, how are you doing? You ready? Sorry, I saw you message earlier, but whenever the text moves on its own, I don't want to waste time, I guess. How are you doing? I hope you're having a good evening. But yes, I am ready as well. Here we go. Panicked! Palms sweaty. I can admit it, I'm nervous. Ah, good morning. Good morning, sir. Much time is wasted dealing with you. No, it would have been with anyone. All the paintings changed in the background. You look tense, Justice. Wound up tight. Wound up, sir? No, I'm loose. What? I'm fine. That screeching noise, is that your voice? I suppose it's to be expected. Your first trial and it's a homicide. I guess justice doesn't start small, eh? I'm fine. I got up at 5 a.m. to do my Chords of Steel voice workout. I'm fine. Ah, that explains it. I did detect a certain rasping quality to your screech. I overdid it again. As you know, your client today is a good friend of mine. Christoph, the stuck-up version of Christopher. I think it's the German version. I wouldn't want to let him down, if you get my drift. Drift gotten, sir. I'm all over that drift. As it happens, I dined with him the night of the murder. We can't let this case fall through. Yes! Yes! I'm fine, sir. One more thing. Don't say you're fine quite so much. People might take you the wrong way. Gulp. But yeah, I believe this guy is from Germany and he has a brother. I'll be preparing our case. You might want to introduce yourself to the client. Germans stereotypically do have sticks up their butts? I've never heard that. I don't know. Well, I know Franziska's like that. My name is Apollo Justice. If it isn't clear already, I'm a new attorney. And today is my first trial. It's always their first trial in these tutorials. Not that I'm worried or anything. The defendant has been accused of murder. I've missed saying that. My boss wants to help him out, of course, and so do I. I mean, there's no way he did it. Not him. No way. No way. Whoa! Good, morning. Morning. It's all up to you today. First trial, nervous. Meeting him, cardiac arrest. Do you know who this punk is? I think I'm supposed to say something. Help. So you're... Fine! I'm fine! Mr. Fine, is it? I did remember you having an odd name. Well, we're off to a great start. Are you sure you're okay? I mean, with me? Mr. Gavin is a top-notch defense attorney. And he's your friend, so why... You'll see. You can do it. Be confident. I'm really sorry this happened to you. I mean, it's time. Shall we? Yes, sir. Okay, I need to focus. First trial. Here comes justice. April 20th, 10 a.m., District Court, courtroom number 2. Oh, it's pain! The court is now in session. Oh my god! The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. The defense is, fine! I mean, ready, Your Honor. Mind going blank, don't panic. Too late. Your name was Mr. Justice? And this is your first trial? Yes, Your Honor. But I'm fine, really! Are you quite sure? Your voice sounds a bit strained. Mr. Gavin? Yes, Your Honor. I was under the impression that you would be heading up this case. That was my intention, yes. However, a defense attorney must always cede to his client's wishes. And my client specifically requested Mr. Justice. Well, of course he wants justice. But to entrust his case to this greenhorn, why? I do not exaggerate when I say that you're the best defense attorney in town, Mr. Gavin. Okay, so Gavin's got trial experience, fine, but does he have cords of steel? Hey, Double Escapement, how are you doing? You glad that I'm streaming? Me too! Then let's begin. The defendant may enter the courtroom. You're away for work and you're going to let it play. Oh, until you fall asleep. That won't be long with this silky voice. Nah, just kidding. Not with pain in the courtroom. This is truly an unfortunate turn of events. I'm sorry we had to meet again under these circumstances. Long time no see, Mr. Wright. Let's put the past behind us, shall we? These days I'm merely Phoenix Wright, piano player. Mr. Wright, how could this have happened? I won't speak of it further then. If the prosecution would be so kind as to explain the charges, Mr. Payne? Fall asleep while watching Stygian? Who would do such a thing? Shot falls asleep all the time. To think I saw you enter this room a fresh attorney, and now I'll see you leave in chains. Ah, Winston Payne. Subtle as ever, I see. You wish you could stay awake? It's fine, I really don't mind. The crime occurred at the Borscht Bowl Club. Not Bowel. Bowel Club. A Russian restaurant. The defendant, Phoenix Wright, took the victim, a customer, and he hit him. Wham! On the head. Smack! Killed him cold. A customer at the restaurant, you say? And the defendant, you say he was the pianist for the club, it seems. Phoenix Wright. A pianist? This is the weapon that took the victim's life. No, Payne wasn't undefeated. Have we ever seen Payne win a case? Let's see. This is the weapon that took the victim's life. A bottle of grape juice. Grape juice. Yes, grape juice. Grape juice is apparently our defendant's drink of choice. The court accepts the deadly bottle as evidence. Grape juice. Deadly bottle of grape juice. Something to note, Justice. All evidence is filed in the court record. Make a practice of checking it frequently. The very first time the defense attorneys are undefeated until they meet Wright. Well, I don't think he claims to have been undefeated, but he calls himself the Rookie Killer. Which I've yet to see him beat one of the rookies. I think he almost defeated, or was that, no, maybe, never mind, that wasn't Payne, that was Edgeworth, where the defendant killed himself in the trial, during the trial, so it never concluded. Alright, make a practice of checking it frequently. Court record. Right. I've heard of that. Speaking of, let's go ahead and look at this stuff. Oh, we got a new badge. How long did I yearn for one of these? Just putting it on makes me feel ready. Okay. Smith's autopsy report. So this guy's name's Smith. The time of death was around 2 a.m., April 17th. Death caused by single blow to the forehead. There's a photo. The sub-basement at the Borscht Bowl Club. Touch the check button for details. Alright. Wait, let me look at it again. Alright. Grape juice bottle used as the murder weapon. Bears the defendant, Mr. Wright's prints. Invigorated by my attorney badge. It's like a second penis. Well, I wouldn't say that about my badge. Christoph Gavin. Boss at Gavin Law Offices. A first-rate defense attorney and my trusted mentor. Phoenix Wright. He's 33 here. I think he was 20 in the last game. Somewhere in his 20s? I don't know. I don't remember. Pianist at the Borscht Bowl Club. Formerly an ace defense attorney of some renown. Shady Smith. The victim in this case. A traveler. Only recently back in country. Ugh. He's 61. The prosecuting attorney. For all his experience, he lacks a certain presence. Alright, let's go ahead. Use the court record button to look at the evidence so far. I'm confident in your ability to handle this. Right. The court record button. Sounds like it's time for some hands-on action. Alright, we already did that. Don't know too many 33-year-olds wearing hoodies. So, the victim was a customer at this restaurant. But just who was this, Shady Smith fellow? We believe he was a traveler, Your Honor. A traveler? According to his passport, he had been out of the country for a number of years. He had only returned to this country recently through his place of residence. Oh, though his place of residence is unclear. And he had some sort of connection with the defendant? That too is unclear at present, Your Honor. We believe they first met at the Borscht Bowl Club on the night of the crime. If they had only just met, then why murder? Perhaps the victim slighted the defendant's piano playing. Yes, I would murder somebody for commenting on my piano playing. That doesn't appear to have been the case. No, the motive had nothing to do with the defendant's lack of playing skill. At least not piano playing. I'll let this photo explain what I mean. All pain needs to be truly retro is a leisure suit. As we can see, a game of poker was in progress at the scene of the crime. Wait a second. Isn't poker gambling? It is if you use money, real money. That's a crime in and of itself. Indeed. It appears our defendant has fallen to become the basest sort of criminal. It is true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim, yet it was only that, a game in the purest sense. A competition, Your Honor. A competition? Yes, a test of wits, a silent clash of passions. Only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, I know its final outcome. No, it's final. Only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. Come again? The cards on the table had blue backs, Your Honor. I believe the defense was waxing poetic in an attempt to mystify those present and impress women. That will be our first order of business here, then, to find out more about this fatal game of cards. Is this Papa on his beanie? Papa. Very well, defendant. You will testify to the court about the poker competition held the night of the crime. My pleasure. This is it, my first trial. Here goes nothing. I guess I'm impressed with what? The competition. I am a pianist by trade, yet I can hardly play at all. My real job is to take on interested customers over at the poker table. The room where we play and the competition in there are the club's main attractions. The rules are simple. We play a game of poker using 2 decks of cards. That's all it is, a game, and our customers are happy. A pianist who can't play piano? Better than a defense attorney who can't defend. Very well. The defense may begin the cross-examination. Payne said the defense was trying to impress... Oh. I'm not gonna comment on it. Right, Your Honor. My first cross-examination. Don't blow it. Are you alright? You're sweating bullets! Bullets? Where? It's a figure of speech, Justice. Your voice sounds strained and raspy, too. My brain feels strained and raspy, sir. You've watched me perform cross-examinations many times. Though you've never done one yourself, have you? Care for a refresher? Can I say no? I know how to do this. What to do? Should I ask Mr. Gavin for a refresher? No, thanks. No need for help here, sir! I think I've got this one covered. I think you better do more than think. You know it or you do not. I'm fine! The cords of steel are ready for battle. My weapons, press and present. Find any inconsistencies, any lies in the testimony, and reveal them to the court. That is cross-examination. Learn it, know it, do it. Inconsistencies? Lies? Phoenix Wright? As if. Phoenix Wright would never lie, and it's up to me to prove it. The defense may begin the cross-examination. I'm gonna press everything first. Pianist by trade. He's a pianist by trade. We can hardly play at all. Whoa, his voice is deeper than he looks. You can hardly play? Oh, I play sometimes when customers demand it. So I play them one song. That's usually all they want. Is that supposed to be a boat just now? A boast just now? He needs to get out of my profession. The title of pianist is a mask. A respectable face I wear for the world at large. And why are you really at the Borscht Bowl Club? Borscht. My real job is... They pay you just to play poker? That would seem to be the case. I am a professional after all. Bah! Do I detect pride in that statement? What? Is he not allowed to have pride in what he does? It's just hard for an honest, hardworking member of society like me to imagine. Yes. Your imagination was always a bit limited, Winston. What? I've played poker for 7 years in that little room, and I've never lost once. So it's, I guess, been 7 years. What? You see why the customers come now? Defeat the undefeated poker champion. Is Phoenix being a good poker player canon in the end? Well, they never mention it, so I guess so. It's quite a draw. That is, I'm quite a draw. Wait, you've never lost once? Not even one time? As I said, I'm a professional. He's played poker for 7 years and not lost once. Is that even possible? Replay. He's so cocky. He's so cocky for a penis. The room in the crime scene photo is an attraction? It has quite a history, actually. The Borscht Bowl Club used to be a gathering spot for black market types back in the day. Black market? All in the past. Things like the black market are only on the silver screen nowadays. Suffice it to say that there were a lot of deals being made under the table. Right there in that room. A smoky room, gambling hoods. You know, just looking at this picture makes me feel bad. Double escapement fell asleep already? You broke your record? Let's see, the bosses gather around the table cutting deals, safe from the eyes of the law. Meanwhile, a goon keeps watch through the small window. I can practically picture it now. That window does look like it would be good for keeping a lookout, but little else. The room had a few other tricks to it, though it was common knowledge to our regulars. At any rate, they come to play poker in a room steeped in history. Despite the dark past, it was all just good, clean fun. Playing poker using 2 decks. 2 decks of cards? A simple measure to prevent cheating. If you alternate 2 decks, no one can slip in cards. There's something else I noticed. In addition to the cards on the table, there are some lying scattered on the floor. Precisely. Cards on the table, cards upon the floor, each one forming a complete deck. A crime scene painted blue by a sad sweep of cards. It's poetic, really. Incidentally, we used 2 types of cards at the club. One deck of cards was red, the other blue. As I recall, in poker you make 5-card hands. I can see how it would be easy to cheat. Yes, a game of hands. Getting a little handsy in the poker room. This competition you're talking about, I believe the court understands the nature of the game sufficiently. That's right! It was a simple game after all. Are you sure? Huh? People are not murdered over simple games, Mr. Justice. Defendant, you were in the room the very moment that crime occurred, yet you claim no connection to the crime. Now that's strange. What's strange? I was testifying about the competition that night. Asking me about the crime at this point is against the rules, Your Honor. Of course, I expected to hear a cry of objection from the defense. Arg, I completely let one slip by. Don't despair yet, Justice. Sir? Right. There's something I'd like made clear, namely your connection to the case at hand, and I'd like to hear it from you. Sure, why not? Very well, the defendant will amend his testimony. Just one little press, and I've got myself a whole new testimony. Okay. I plead silence regarding the murder, but I will say I never touched the murder weapon. Your prints are on it! Hold it! Silence? The defendant has the right to refuse to testify. I haven't forgotten everything about the law. Why? That clearly puts you at a disadvantage. And it's your job to turn that around in our favor, yes? Great. Like I didn't have enough to do already. Justice, didn't you detect anything odd about the testimony? Huh? Wait, something he said did ring a little strangely. Just one thing. And what was it? When you figure it out, I'd suggest presenting evidence. Evidence that contradicts the testimony. Contradiction in Mr. Wright's testimony? But why? I better check the court record. I can't imagine Mr. Wright lying in a testimony. Isn't it a little early to be jumping to conclusions? This is your first cross-examination. Take it slow. If you need more information, don't forget to press. Right, I got it! I'm fine! Time to listen to that testimony again. I guess it's this that has his prints on it. Objection! So, you say you didn't touch the murder weapon. This grape juice bottle? Right? So I said. Is something the matter, Mr. Justice? Hee 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 hee. Ugh! Too bad our new defense attorney never learned how to play dumb. What's this, Mr. Payne? I examined the bottle in question, you see, and it was covered with the defendant's fingerprints. Objection! No need to shout, Mr. Justice. I can hear you just fine. Excess yelling can damage the judge's ears and our case. But what about my cords of steel? Anyway, what's so strange about fingerprints on a bottle in a restaurant? Well, that's true. The prints alone don't prove... Oh, they wouldn't prove a thing if they were normal fingerprints. Huh? But the fingerprints on the murder weapon were upside down. Upside down? What does that mean? It means he was holding the bottle inverted, and there can only be one reason for that. Conk. Death. Yes. To brain someone with a bottle. What? Mr. Gavin, I think things just took a turn for the worse. Oh? I see no problem, Justice. Huh? The only thing that matters is the truth. There's a good reason for everything. You'll see. Defendant, can you explain your fingerprints on this bottle to the court? I stand by my plea of silence regarding the murder. For now. Not very cooperative, are you? This could hurt your case. I'm sure he's uncooperative because he's hiding something. There must be some reason.
Objection!
Your Honor, you seem to have forgotten something. And what might that be, Mr. Gavin? On the night of the crime, who was it who reported the murder to the police? Reported? Well, that was the defendant, Mr. Wright. But still, that... Really? Yes. Well, according to the case file, the murder was reported from near the scene by a call from the defendant's cell phone. Near the scene? Let's take a look at a diagram of the murder scene, shall we? The victim was murdered in a small room in a basement, 2 floors down from ground level. There are the fingerprints of the Mothman. What? Of course, cell phones can't get reception so far down. The defendant used the stairs in this hallway to go above ground. The call came from the first floor of the restaurant. I see. And this is the cell phone that made the call? Right, cell phone added to the court record. The defendant could have just fled the scene of the crime if he so chose. Let's look at the phone. Used by the defendant to notify the police from the restaurant's first floor. Check. We can check it. Oh, look! It's got this stuff again. Your dad used to have a cell phone like that, a little Nokia phone. I used to have a cell phone like that. Wow, the batteries are held in with a piece of tape. You should just buy a new one. Maybe he can't afford it, or he just doesn't care. Yeah, the first 3 games were originally on the Game Boy Advance. This one was made for the DS. So it's got all this neat doodads and stuff. Alright, I don't see anything suspicious, really. Yet, he fulfilled his duty as a citizen and reported it to the authorities. And you claim he is being uncooperative? Nice save, Mr. Gavin. I'd better not waste this. I think the prosecution has toyed with our client enough for the time being. Toyed? I assure you, no one is more serious about... What was it you said? The defendant was in the room the very moment the crime occurred. All these neat doodads. That was the first thing I saw that was any different from the look of the Advance. Yeah. I know. How can you possibly know this? That's a good question. How indeed? The answer is simple, Your Honor. The prosecution has a decisive witness. Hee, you're as good as they say you are. So someone else was in the room the night of the crime. That must mean they witnessed the crime. Everything up till now has been a warm-up, Justice. Are you ready? Very well. The prosecution may call its first witness to the stand. You like the altered background? Yeah, it's no longer about Phoenix and Maya and all that. In fact, I don't think Maya's in any of the games after this. Except maybe the newest one. That was like her big triumphant return game. But I haven't played it, so I don't know. The witness will state her name and profession. Hold on, just a moment. Where's the witness? I surmise that she's been frightened by the defense's demonic-looking horns. So I used a little hair gel. Relax, people. Have no fear. If any horns point in your direction, this court will cut them off. What? You are sure? I swear it on my gavel. Please, come out. Isn't violence against hair a crime, Your Honor? Well, if you're sure it's okay. We've got about 10 more to go before we... No, it's actually... This is the 4th one. It's... The newest one is the 6th one. There's only 2 more before, but I mean there's also side games, which is the Ace Attorney Investigators games. Ugh, my throat does not want to clear up. Whoa, wait a minute. Would the prosecution care to explain the witness's paraphernalia? Yes. She is a professional, Your Honor. These are merely the tools of her trade. And that would be... My name is Olga Orly. I'm employed as waitress in Borscht Bowl Club restaurant. I know she's supposed to have a Russian accent, but I'm not doing it. Then why the camera? Of course, it is my pride to serve borscht that is naming restaurant, but I also perform, how it is said, other service. I take it one of these other services is taking customers' pictures. Like for example, this one. Uh-oh. What is with Phoenix and his friends dressing themselves in winter clothes? Does this not take place in LA? I guess it does, I don't know. That's the defendant? Indeed, on the night of the murder, the man in white hat is one who has gone kaput. Indeed, that is the victim. Order! Order! This is quite a piece of evidence to casually drop into our laps. It is same way as I drop cold bowls of borscht on laps of customers casually. Then the court will casually accept this new evidence. Olga's photo added to the court record. Now, witness, where were you at the time of the murder? I was in room, the hideout we call it. Excuse me? The hideout? Hold on, I want to look at the picture. Hey, I knew they'd drop things in my lap on purpose. On porpoise. It is room where famous gangster bad guy was arrested. Bad guy. Is room where murder took place. What? Your look of utter surprise. It is lovely. I will post my courtroom door later for you. Photos will be numbered and you will write which ones you want copy of. So there were 3 people in the room at the time of the crime. The victim, Shady Smith, Mr. Wright, and Olga Orly, our witness. I think it's supposed to be like the oh really owl picture thingy. She's a little better than that one dude who had like 3 or 4 plates in his hands. And if Mr. Wright isn't the killer, that means that she's the killer. Very well. Witness, you will testify to the court about that night's events. That fateful night. That night, customer asked me to deal cards for game. It was cold. Both players played with hats on. Duh. The victim, he plays full time with his hand on locket at his neck. Then last hand is done, but something terrible has happened. Duh. That man flew at victim and is strangling him to death. I thought he was murdered with a wine bottle. A grape juice bottle. Incidentally, who won the game? Isn't it obvious? The winner was the victim, Mr. Smith.
Objection!
That's ridiculous! Because Mr. Wright can't lose. Justice? Maybe you can come up with a more legitimate objection. But he hadn't lost in 7 years. Take it from me, kid, it happens. I didn't lose a case my first 7 years as prosecutor, either. Incidentally, I have some evidence here. Grape juice bottles are my weapon of choice. These are the poker chips as they were laid the very moment of the crime. The hand and chips on this side belong to the defendant, Mr. Wright. Those on the far side belong to the victim, Mr. Smith. Chips, you say? Duh. Yes. Imagine that poker's war. Your hand is your army, and the chips are the spoils. I know that. After all, in my youth, I was known as the poker head of courtroom number 3. What? I think he means poker face. Looking at this picture, it does seem that most of the chips are on the victim's side of the table. Chip photo added to the court record. Very well, the defense may cross-examine the witness. The fateful night. I want to look at this picture first. That night, customer asked me to deal the cards. You were dealing cards? Do you do this often? Duh! I am doing this. If customer wishes it, I serve anything. Borscht? Cards? More borscht? It is my work! It's good to hear of a place that hasn't forgotten the meaning of service! Welcome you to Borscht Bowl Club, where borscht is as warm as the waitresses. Thank you for not handing out flyers during the cross-examination. It was cold. Both players played with hats on. It's already April. How could it be cold? Here's where Shot's logic comes in, I guess. At Borscht Bowl Club, we have pride on authentic rustic Russian restaurant theme. Outside, it is city in spring, but inside, it is always as cold as Mother Russia. There you go, Shot. There's your answer. That's why everyone's wearing hats and cold clothing. I don't know why she's wearing it in the courtroom, though. She's probably boiling. No way am I going there. When it comes to hot borscht, cold is best seasoning, da? The victim, he plays whole time with his hand in his locket. His locket? I believe it was good luck charm, da? He gripped it many times as he played that night. Yes, he must have felt as though it might carry him to the moon and the stars. Though if it were small enough to fit around his neck, it wouldn't have much lift. The defense would like a clarification. This is a locket we're talking about. Oh, the judge thinks rocket. Their food must cost a fortune to sustain the AC bill. I know, right? mean a pendant with a picture in it, right? Not a rocket? Of course! I knew that. It was probably a pendant shaped like a rocket. That's why she called it that. No, a locket's a locket! It's considered bad form to poke fun at the hard of hearing in our society. Hard of hearing or hard of understanding? So what happened next? Then last hand is done, but something terrible has happened.
Hold it!
Something terrible? Eek! The defense will refrain from needless shouting. Sorry. I need to seriously reconsider this vocal training thing. Now, Miss Orley, can you tell us what happened? Oh, I was so frightened. I trembled with fear. That man flew at the victim and strangling him to death.
Hold it!
But the defendant would never do such a thing. Eek! Well now, I can't say I've ever heard the defense try this tactic. If possible, please, refrain from embarrassing me. Still, why would anyone do something like this over a game of poker? Perhaps it is because defendant has lost game. Yes, a crushing defeat for a man undefeated. So it always is with men like him. Winners make sore losers. Oh, how the mighty fall. Go ahead. I believe you know what it is you need to do. Right, sir. Leave it to me. There were only 3 people in the room at the time of the murder. The victim, Shady Smith. And then Mr. Wright isn't the killer. I've got you now, Orley!
Objection!
Oh, really? Strangled, you say? That's odd. Duh, normal customers only choke on borscht. No, I mean, this report shows that the victim died of a blow to the head. Ack! Miss Orley, really now, did you witness the crime? That was impressive. Looking at the picture, it doesn't seem like he was hit. He's still wearing his hat and everything. Yet, it is a fact that he was hit, Your Honor. Ugh! Here's a photo we took of the victim with his hat off during our investigation. Well, that's quite shocking, isn't it? This head certainly was hit. But I have seen it happen. The defendant, he lunged at victim. His neck. Oh, really, Miss Orley? I think I've caught you in your own lie this time. Justice. I admire your enthusiasm, but perhaps you should think this through once more. What do you mean? I found a contradiction. There's one thing in her testimony that troubles me. Very well. It seems we should continue the cross-examination. There's such a thing as thinking too much. This horse is dead. Let's stop beating it. There's such a thing as thinking aloud too much, too. Alright. I'm not sure how well you guys can see this smaller photo, but he doesn't have the necklace on. Or a locket. So I don't know if this is what it's supposed to be.
Objection!
Yes! You know, there was one curious part in her testimony, just like Mr. Gavin said. But what does it mean? Mr. Justice, would you care to explain what it is you're thinking so intensely about? Recall the testimony, Your Honor. The victim played with his hand on his locket at his neck, I believe she said. I hope you aren't about to raise an objection to the witness's grammar. No, but look at this photograph. Do you see a locket on the victim's neck? Well done, Justice. I'm impressed. I knew you'd be able to handle this. But does that mean... If we are to believe the witness's testimony as is, then the locket disappeared following the victim's death. Lockets don't just disappear, Your Honor. It's quite simple when you think about it. If the locket is gone, someone must have taken it off, no? Taken it off? Wait, you don't mean... The defendant wasn't strangling the victim at all. He was taking off his locket. Wouldn't that explain it? Ah! Erk! Defendant, what do you have to say about this? To this? Say. Yes? I just noticed this, but... You have something hanging around your neck, don't you? Oh? You mean this? Yes, it's a locket, with a photograph inside. A photo of my daughter. Come again? Mr. Wright, you have a daughter? We confirmed it at the time of the arrest. The picture in the locket is indeed Mr. Wright's daughter. So, Mr. Wright has a locket, too? Why don't I buy that this is just a coincidence? Well now, if the results of this poker game led to the murder, perhaps we should hear a bit more about the outcome of the game. Further testimony won't really be necessary. It's clear the defendant lost. Badly. Miss Orley, you will testify to the court about the game played between the victim and the defendant. Duh. Serious competition. The game began with 3,500 points in chips for each man. House chips come in two sizes, small and large. The one who was winning, it was the victim. For last hand, defendant play with all chips on table and lose. The moment loss was decided, defendant grabbed bottle from table and... Indeed, looking at this picture, it does seem to be a one-sided game. As the court knows, poker was the defendant's life. Failure must have been a bitter pill to swallow. How many times have I heard these words? I'd done it in a fit of anger, Your Honor. Oh, a common tale, but true. I hate these ones where it automatically continues too quickly, so you're not supposed to hear the whole thing, or read the whole thing. Methinks the judge watches too many old court movies. Night Court. Is that what it's called? I used to love that show. Judge Reinhold. Mr. Wright said he hasn't lost in 7 years, so this testimony must be wrong. A serious competition. Alright, let's press, I guess.
Hold it!
Are those the usual starting points? Were any special rules used? No, not special. Usual game, usual rules. Usual rules. If each man began with 3,500 points, and the total would be, exactly 7,000 points. Please, this isn't calculus, it's not even long division. House chips come in two sizes, small and large.
Hold it!
Are the chips in this photo all the chips that were used? Duh, of course. Something is fishy with these chips. Should I press harder? Maybe you could explain a bit about these chips. Explain? What is there to be explained? Poker chips are poker chips. They're not fish and chips. Not a chip off the old block. Not a motorcycle cop. What? Thanks. Now that I pressed her, I had better ask something. What are these chips worth? Are they in dollars? Or rubles even? Yet, as I've been saying before, it was game, not gambling. Hard, perhaps, for capitalists to understand. 2 types of chips. 100-point chips and 1,000-point chips. It is not money, duh. Justice. Let's see if my high-pitched voice woke up Double Escapement. Objection! Sir! Don't you find her comments interesting? In more ways than one, sir. I'd have it added to her testimony myself. Well, does the defense want the witness to add to her testimony? Yes. Sure, why not? Yes, I do think this deserves further scrutiny. Added to the testimony. I wish I knew where I was going with this. Very well. Witness, if you would be so kind. Duh, Your Honor. 1 kind of chip is worth 100. 2 kinds in all. Mr. Gavin said this testimony is important. To be honest, I have no idea why. Mr. Justice, do the court a favor and think of what you want to say before raising your hand. We're not in kindergarten. Eck! Sorry, I'm fine. I better think of something to ask. Quick. The 2 types of chips. The small ones are 100 and the big ones 1,000. Right? Right, of course. Ha! Don't waste our time. Is that all? Yeah. Gulp. Great. Mr. Gavin made me stop her, and now I'm the one who looks dumb. Oh, Justice? Please try not to embarrass me like that. Huh? Who, me? There's a clear contradiction in the information you have in your hands. What? It's a simple matter of calculation. Go on, try it. We're not in kindergarten after all. Calculation. I think this is the one that's the contradicting statement. Wait, who? You're telling me that Mr. Wright, undefeated for 7 whole years, was losing? Duh, it must have been the most unlucky day for him. I'm glad I did not take another picture of him. It would break camera, certainly. The chips, they went always to the victim's side of the table. So you're telling us it was a one-sided game? Duh, one-sided, and the last hand defendant play with all chips on table and lose. Last hand? It was largest points of any hand. The defendant's hand. It was excellent. He tried to use it to take victory from behind. It appears that both the defendant and victim's hands are in this picture. That is truly an excellent hand. However, so is the victim's. One with highest number wins, so defendant loses. The victim, Mr. Smith, had a stronger hand than the defendant and crushed him. I believe that explains what occurred next. Once cards laid down on table, it happened. The moment lost was decided. Defendant grabs bottle from table and...
Hold it!
And? What happened next? Even to think of it now, I shake and tremble. Ah! I did not believe such a thing would happen. What such thing? Please, you must believe. I had no idea. How could such a thing occur? What such thing? Yet. The defendant had been hitting the victim. I saw it all happen right before me. I saw a bottle coming down on victim's head. Decisive, isn't it, Your Honor? My witness saw the very moment of the crime. Remember, your first goal is to gather information. Yes, sir. Look out, contradiction. Here comes justice. So if they each had 3,500, but that would mean the smaller ones are the 1,000, right? There's too many of the big ones for the big ones to be 1,000.
Objection!
You're sure it was the victim who won? Absolutely sure? Objection! It seems our new attorney is a bit confused. A glance at this picture is enough to tell you who won. If you're not in kindergarten. Just for safety's sake, could you explain the problem to the court? Of course, Your Honor. In this photo, I see small chips and I see large chips. Tell me, which were worth 1,000 points? Why, the big ones, of course. Duh. Oh, I thought so too, but then the totals don't add up. The totals? Let's review what the witness told us. Each man started with 3,500 points in chips, and the combined total value of chips was 7,000 points. Yes, if my calculations are correct. Let's see, 3 plus 1, carry the 5. They are, Your Honor. Now, look at this photo that allegedly shows all the chips. If the big chips are worth 1,000 points and the small chips are worth 100, and you add them up, how much is it? Do it yourself? You aren't in kindergarten, are you? 10,600 points. The chips don't add up. This clearly contradicts the witness's testimony. But why? How could this be? Exactly, Justice. Now that you know the what, you must determine the why. Right. There's only one possible way to explain this contradiction. Starting points were wrong, chip count was wrong. Both were right. I guess the chip count? Well, I guess they're both right. It's just that each man began the game with 3,500 points. If all the chips are indeed shown in this photograph, then there can be only one answer. Well, what is it? The value of the chips was the other way around. What? Want to know what I think? The small chips are worth 1,000 points, not the big ones. Madness! Utter madness! Show me that photograph of the chips again. There are 6 small chips and 10 large chips. Why, that does make 7,000 points when you add them up. Excellent work, Justice. It's It's almost as though you figured it out by yourself. Well, I'm just glad I was the one who said it. But wait! The value of the chips may be different, but that changes nothing. Indeed. The victim did have the larger number of chips still. Ah! Exactly. If the small chips are 1,000 points and the large chips are 100, well, let's do a little math. Add up the points for each side of the table. The victim, Mr. Smith, had 2,900 points, and the defendant, 4,100 points. Well now. It seems that Mr. Wright was winning that night after all. That's impossible! My clan had even less reason to kill the victim. After all, he was winning! Yarg! Now, Miss Orley, you must have known the true value of the chips. Since you were at the scene of the crime, weren't you? Eek! Order! Order! It appears our defendant has lost his motive, and Mr. Wright's supposed defeat never happened. Nunguk! We must now ask ourselves a whole... Excuse me? What is it, Ms. Orley? I did not want to be saying this, but actually, you see, See what, Miss Orley? What do we see? In the last hand, there was cheat! A cheat? You don't mean a trick? Wait, or do you mean a scam? They're all the same thing. Yes, there was cheat in last hand. That is why game ends with chips as they are. Great. Just great. First we have lying, now cheating. Well, this case certainly has taken a turn. For the interesting... Witness, will you please testify to the court? Tell us about this cheating in the final hand. The final hand. The last hand, both men had full house. There is 4 of each card in deck, from ace to king. If you look at both men's hands, cheat is more obvious. The next moment, game becomes argument. Duh! The defendant's trick was exposed. He took bottle in his hand. Poor Mr. Smith. Ms. Orley! Why did you not tell the court about this from the very beginning? I thought I smelled a cover-up here. Well, folks, it's time to throw back the covers. Full house is a very high-scoring hand. Not easy to make, in my experience. That alone is enough to suspect less than scrupulous tactics. Mr. Gavin? What's a full house? Lawyers these days, you don't know your poker. I can't say this bodes well for your case or career. What is this? Some kind of secret court poker ring? Justice. You know the terms 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair of a kind? Yeah, no problem. 2 cards with the same number makes a pair, and 3 makes 3 of a kind. Good. Now picture a hand with 1 pair and 1 3 of a kind. That's a full house. That doesn't sound very easy to make, does it? You can see each player's hand in this photo. Wow, they both have full houses. We forget, there's an easy way to make a full house and go undefeated for 7 years. You cheat. The defense may cross-examine the witness. If he did cheat in the last hand, it still leaves one important question. Mr. Wright lost that hand. Who's ever heard of a professional con man losing when they cheat? I'll look at this again. They say it's obvious to tell when you look at it. I don't see the obvious, I guess. Let's press. Just how hard is it to make a full house anyway? It is quite hard, duh. It is making a pair and a three of a kind at the same time. I guess that's right. Very difficult to be sure. You can take my word as the poker head of courtroom number 3. Very difficult, duh, but it's not impossible. Okay, full house, hard. This line of questioning, a waste of time. 4 of each card in deck. From ace to king.
Hold it!
4 of each card, you say? Duh! There is 1 spade, 1 diamond, 1 heart, and 1 club for each card. It is interesting fact that this number 4 comes from number of seasons. Huh, you don't say. Ah, and did you know that the cards are numbered 1 through 13? And all the cards in a deck... add all the cards in a deck and you get 364. A year! Huh, you don't say. Isn't that 1 day short? That's why each deck has 2 jokers. They say the second joker stands for the leap year. Thus, you have a perfect representation of the year, all in a deck of cards. Huh, you don't say. We're going to be in this courtroom for a year if it keeps going like this. If you look at both men's hands, the cheat is more obvious. How is it clear? Duh, well, the defendant, he played a 5th ace. What? A 5th ace? I still remember both hands very well. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces. And Mr. Wright's has 2. Obviously cheating was afoot, or perhaps I should say a hand. Wait, what? No, I see 4 aces here. Your Honor, perhaps this can be added to the testimony without Mr. Payne's joke? Very well. The witness will add this detail to her testimony, please. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces. Let's see.
Hold it!
A 5th ace? Duh! It should not exist, no? I still remember both hands very well. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces. And Mr. Wright's 2. Well, where did this card come from then? Perhaps we should ask the defendant that very question. Adding cards to a deck is no less serious a taboo than forgoing evidence in a court of law. Now, perhaps it's time for you to say something, Justice. You bet. I have no intention of staying quiet. Not me, no sir! I better find some contradicting evidence fast. Let's finish pressing and then we'll go back to that.
Hold it!
Do you recall what the men were arguing about? I believe so. The victim, he shouts, "You are a cheater!" And then the defendant shouts something like, "I have objection!" Shouting objection, eh? Old habits are hard to break. First he bluffed his way through the courtroom, now he bluffs his way through life.
Objection!
However, Mr. Wright lost the hand. That seems to cast the shadow of doubt on Mr. Smith. Humiliation from losing even when cheating. That is what set fire to the defendant's heart. So what did the flaming defendant do next? Two bottles in his hand for Mr. Smith.
Hold it!
By bottle, are you referring to this? The defendant uses this bottle to sob? I don't know what kind of noise that would be. This behavior is an admission of cheating by the defendant. But why use a grape juice bottle? You'd be surprised at what can be used as a weapon. This juice is recommended drink of Borscht Bowl Club, This year's vintage is remarkable for its hefty flavor. Vintage grape juice. Hefty enough to brain a grown man, apparently. First she says it was a serious competition, now she says there was cheating. Justice, notice anything odd? Her testimony keeps changing. Now she says the defendant cheated. Actually, yes, I had noticed that. Let's get the truth about this cheating first, shall we? Right, leave it to me.
Objection!
It appears the witness is mistaken. Mistaken? But my name... Look, this piece of evidence clearly contradicts what you said in your testimony. That's the photo of the chips, is it not? Justice. Perhaps you ought to explain your point in a way that the judge can comprehend. In other words, use your finger to point out your point. Yes, please point out the contradiction in this photo. What particular point contradicts the witness's testimony? I guess over here. Because Phoenix's hand looks like what she said, but it's the victim's hand that looks different.
Take that!
Ms. Orley, in your testimony you made the following claim. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces, but as you can clearly see, the victim's hand only held 2 aces. Eek! Not check that! Well, maybe the witness was simply confused. Perhaps it was the defendant's hand that held the 3rd ace in question.
Objection!
Take another look at the evidence. As you can see, the defendant also had 2 aces in his hand. Where's the 5th ace? I see cheating alright, and it's going on right here in this courtroom. 2 aces in each player's hand does make 4 aces in total. Hardly proof of cheating. Wait, please! It is true, I've seen it! The 5th ace! There was cheating, I swear to you! That's odd. She must be lying, yet she's the most sincere I've seen her all day. You're right to trust your instincts. Mr. Gavin? Who knows what lies in store for us in the trial ahead? Your Honor, if I may, I have a suggestion. What might that be, Mr. Gavin? If you don't mind, perhaps we might examine the actual cards. The cards? Mr. Payne. Yes? The players' hands that night were set aside as evidence, were they not? The defense would like to request that the cards be shown to the court. Very well, the prosecution will submit this evidence. Which will you examine? The victim's cards or the defendant's cards? If these cards don't prove cheating was going on, nothing will. Now, which of these hands is more suspicious? Let's view the victim's hand, because that's the one that is different than what she claims. It was the victim's hand that changed over the course of the witness's testimony. The defense requests time to examine Mr. Smith's cards. Very well. Mr. Payne, if you would. Very well. Received evidence, victim's hand. Well, time's a-wasting. Get to it, Justice. Yes, sir! Oh. When examining evidence, be sure to view it from all sides and angles. Try using the dials on the evidence viewer. That should give you a better perspective on the case. Okay, let's do this. Oh. The defendant was the victim was cheating. He has red cards. And what was supposed to be the blue deck, I guess. The card backs are red. For some reason I thought that they were using blue cards in that final hand. Didn't you, Mr. Gavin? Huh? Oh, Which was it now? What? Your Honor, look at this! One of the victim's cards. The back is a different color. That's impossible! But I put that card in Wright's hand. What was that, Ms. Orley? No, yeah, I merely said, I have... Eek! Your Honor? Mr. Gavin? Mr. Gavin, yes? Tell me, what is the easiest way to cheat at poker? To cheat? I'll tell you. One merely needs a friend. A comrade, shall we say. The dealer. Wait, so you mean... This witness, Miss Orley, she's the cheater. A professional, I'd wager. Yarg! Order! Order! Focus, Justice. Time to take advantage of her. I mean, of her mistake. Your Honor, please recall the testimony we just heard. That's impossible, but I put that card in Wright's hand. Ergo, Ms. Olga Orley conspired to cheat. Not with my client, but with the victim, Mr. Shady Smith. Ugh. I don't know if I approve of this music. I like the original music better. Oog! Not only did she cheat, she cheated poorly. Therefore, it's not hard to imagine an altercation between her and the victim. What? Wait, you don't mean... The defense isn't accusing the witness, Miss Olga Orley, are you? Time for justice. There were 3 people in the room at the time of the incident. And if Mr. Wright wasn't guilty, that means... I am. The defense accuses the witness, Miss Olga Orley, of murder. Eek! Now let's see if that high-pitched screech woke up Shot. Mr. Payne, where is your witness, Ms. Olga Orley? It appears she's lost, consciousness, Your Honor. Mr. Justice? Your Honor, it seems you presented a new possibility to the court. One suggesting a connection between the witness and the victim, Mr. Smith. And that means... This court cannot pronounce a verdict for the defendant at this time. What? I did it! I held out. I see no point in prolonging the trial this day. The prosecution will need to make further inquiries.
Objection!
Is that Phoenix? Oh. Mr. Wright? You can't end the trial here, Your Honor. Not yet. What nonsense is the defendant spewing now? Think. One of the cards had a different colored back. Don't you wonder what it means? What are you doing, Mr. Wright? Raising objections right when you're about to get off the hook? Ridiculous! Ridiculosity! Mr. Payne, you of all people should know. Mr. Wright has a talent for the ridiculous. The ridiculosity. Perhaps we should get to the bottom of things. Let's clear up the facts about the game that fateful night. As was said before, we alternated between 2 decks of cards that night. That was said before. The 2 decks at the club have different colored backs, blue and red. 1 color per deck. Why use different colored backs? If we use the same color, the 2 decks might get mixed. You used different colors and they still got mixed up. We used the red deck for the last game. I see. But that's odd. For some reason, I had this impression that you were using the blue cards. Yeah, me too. I'm sure someone said something about blue cards. Whatever. In the end, 1 card of the wrong color got in the mix. Which means there was cheating. Yes, a card slipped into the deck would seem to indicate cheating. Yet, this card raises 2 serious questions. Apollo? Yes? Let's consider the first question, shall we? Think. In the last game, when was the card swapped? When? There are 3 broad possibilities here. It could have been swapped before the murder, during the murder, or after the murder. Well, yeah. Thanks for the news bulletin, Mr. Wright. Of course, it was swapped. Oh? It might be as simple as you think, Mr. Payne, or it might not be. I'd like to hear what Apollo thinks first. When do you think the cards were swapped? When was the card swapped into the deck? With my previous knowledge of this case, I think it's after the murder. Perhaps it happened after the murder? What's that? Ridiculous! What's the point of cheating after the hands have been What's the point of cheating after the hands have been shown? That's silly!
Objection!
Yes, but tell me, how do you swap cards during the game? I'll take silly over impossible. Take it from me, son, there's a lot of silly in this world, but very little impossible. Oh? Even when the backs of the cards are a different color? If you pulled that during the game, you'd be caught in no time. Ah, quite true. That would mean that the blue card in question was swapped after the hands were shown. After the murder. Okay, this is going past silly and straight on to crazy! I ask again, what's the point of cheating after the game is over? Who would do that? Who indeed? That's one of the mysteries before us. But there's another? Yes, a simple yet decisive question must be asked. Who swapped the red card for a blue card? Who? The game and murder is done. The victim is dead. Only 2 remaining in the room. Alive, that is. The defendant, Phoenix Wright, and our witness, Olga Orley. You finally have a call that you can relax with? Yay! Okay, so who was it that swapped the red card for a blue? You know, I kind of like this music here. It's nice and mellow. I always like mellow music. I don't know. Again, my prior knowledge tells me to choose the bottom choice, but I don't know 100%. The one who swapped the cards wasn't Mr. Wright, of course. And, well, it doesn't seem like it could have been Olga Orly either. What are you suggesting? That's hardly a logical conclusion, I'll admit. As the defense, I think it only makes sense for you to name Miss Orly at this point. Yes, I know. But she was the one who dealt the cards, right? I just can't believe she would make the mistake of swapping the wrong color card. And if the card was swapped during the game, it'd be obvious. Something you'd like to share with the court, Mr. Wright? Oh, my apologies, Your Honor. I was just thinking how much fun all this is. Fun? How about confusing? I have no idea what the defense is claiming, Your Honor. If the one who swapped the card wasn't the defendant, and it wasn't Miss Orly, then who was it? Yeah, well... What is the question? Isn't it? That is the question, isn't it? Precisely. Huh? I believe we're about to see this case take a new direction. A new direction? We'll find that, indeed, after the murder, someone swapped one of the cards in the victim's hand, and that someone made two critical mistakes. I'm sure you're going to tell us that the first was swapping the wrong color card. Because the one who did the swap didn't know two colors of cards were being used, the other mistake was the number on the card. Right, the person replaced the fifth ace with a king. I'm sure whoever swapped it wasn't expecting there to be a fifth ace after all. All they knew was that the game had been won with a full house. So they picked up a king from the table and swapped it in. But there's one problem. According to our case record, this person doesn't exist. True, not until now. But you had to admit the possibility of a fourth person. Though it's more than a possibility. There was someone else there that night at the scene of the crime. Whoa, what? I believe the judge spoke truthfully earlier. You do make trials ridiculous, Mr. Wright. This trial has proceeded on one central assumption. Namely, that at the time of the incident, there were only 3 people in that room. I believe this new evidence, shall we say, overturns that assumption. The problem is that you chose to conceal this information from the court. I suppose it is a problem. Yes. Court is adjourned for a brief recess. Mr. Gavin, I'll see you in my chambers during this recess. Certainly, Your Honor. Very well. The trial will resume in 20 minutes. April 20th, 11:52 a.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. That was quite unexpected, Mr. Wright. To suddenly claim there was another person at the scene of the crime like that. I must ask, is it the truth? Well now, I'd think you would know the answer to that. Being mysterious, are we? Sadly, I have no time for mysteries. I'd only ask that you leave the defending to your defense in the future. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee the outcome. I see you haven't mellowed out one bit, Kristoff. Justice. Yes, sir. The judge has summoned me to his chambers, so carry on without me. You did well, Apollo. Can I ask you something? Sure. That locket you wear, Is that really yours, Mr. Wright? Ah, you're wondering about the victim's disappearing locket. Here, you can take a look at it. It's a picture of my daughter in there. I'm just surprised to hear you had a daughter. Most people are. Perhaps you'll meet her one of these days. One more question. The one who cheated that night, was it you? What do you think? Huh? You know what happened 7 years ago. What I did. It's not unreasonable for you to think I might cheat. I never. Honest. But it is odd that he managed to go undefeated for 7 whole years. Want to know something? There's only one game where you can be dealt bad cards all night and still win. Poker. Huh? You see, poker is all about reading your opponent. In that way, it's a lot like a court case. Poker is like trial law? Figure out what your opponent is thinking, and you win. Well, yeah, but it's harder than it sounds. I think not. Try as they might to conceal it, everyone reveals their true thoughts in the end. Their body language can become a valuable source of information. You're kidding! That witness, for instance, Miss Orley. She would touch the back of her neck during certain parts of her testimony. Did you notice? No. Come on, who would notice that? Words, habits, twitches, it's all information for the reading. That's the secret to winning, Apollo. Someone taught me, and now I pass the secret on to you. But I'm not worthy. I mean, there's no way I'll pick up on these signals. No, you can do it. Huh? You just don't know it yet. What's he talking about? But you will. Soon. I almost forgot. One more thing about this case. You should know, I haven't told the truth to anyone yet. What? I knew it! I have my reasons, of course. All shall be revealed. And Apollo, I need you to be there, defending me. I need your power. My, power? I had no idea my cords of steel were that special. It's time. The real trial begins now. Do your best. To be continued. Oh god, that's awful. I really don't like that. That tone. Where did my water go? Where did I put my water? Where's my water? Is this it? Oh yeah, that's okay. April 20th, 12:14 p.m. District Court, courtroom number 2. Court will now reconvene. Has our witness, Ms. Olga Orley, recovered? Yes, Your Honor. Well, she's regained consciousness. Perhaps we can hear her version of the events again. That's the thing, you see. She's quite fatigued. You're looking a bit fatigued yourself, Mr. Peng. Sadly, fatigue is insufficient grounds for refusing to testify or prosecute. The defense would like to request that Ms. Orley take the stand. Very well, the witness will take the stand. Perhaps you could repeat your name and profession. Or perhaps you'd rather admit that you're a poor liar and a poorer loser. Not. Oh. What? Name's Olga Orley. That's the truth. I'm a pro dealer. Okay. People call me Olga Quickfingers Orly. Oh. Oh, really? Want to know something else? I'm not really Russian, and my last name sounds like, oh really? There, that's the truth. I hope you're satisfied. Witness! You will tell the court what you were really up to that night. Fine, I'll talk. We had a plan, see? Let me remind you that you are currently under oath. Any further fabrications will have serious consequences. Fine. Like I said, I'm a pro. That guy Smith hired me to do what I do best. I was planted at the Borscht Bowl Club several days prior to the night of the game. As a waitress. So you were in cahoots with the victim. Not that he needed my help. Smith is a well-known poker player in some circles. But winning wasn't the main purpose of this game. It was about destroying a legend, the unbeatable Phoenix Wright. The plan was simple. Elegant, really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts. I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When their hands were revealed, Smith would call him out and search Wright. Wow, this looks really bad. He would then pull out the planted card and the trap would snap shut. You swapped the cards. Exposed as a cheater and losing on top of it. It would have made a great double play. Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces. Indeed. Getting caught red-handed at cheating would cast doubt on all his prior wins. A 7-year legend destroyed by one little card. That was the plan. Oh really, Orly? How droll. But it appears you made quite the mistake. A mistake? I agree the trap was elegant. Yet, what happened to that planted card? Hey, that's right. He's lucky, I'll give him that. You'd have to be... Let me read this and try and figure out what it's really trying to say. You'd have to be... I actually have no idea. You'd have to be something. It's like missing a word, and I haven't a clue. You'd have to be something to slip free from a trap laid by Olga Quickfingers Orly. Like, you'd have to be amazing, I guess, to slip free? I don't know. I have no clue. No clue what it's supposed to say. Oh, really? The witness would be much cuter if she dispensed with the evil mastermind shtick. Cute? Who wants to be cute? I'm not cute. I'm bad. You hear me? Bad! When you're through being bad, perhaps you could testify to the court. Tell us about this trap and how it was sprung. The best laid traps. That night I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the last hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. The next moment, Wright picked up a bottle and swung it. It wasn't me who hit Smith. It was that no-good cheating defendant. Surprisingly frank testimony that still leaves us mostly in the dark. The trap was perfect! I tell you, perfect! If that rotten cheater hadn't messed it up. Look who's talking! Well, the testimony for what it's worth is all yours, Mr. Justice. With a witness like her, who needs criminals? And with defendants like Mr. Wright, who needs prosecutors. I planted the card like I was supposed to.
Hold it!
This planted card, which card was it exactly? The trump card, the 5 of hearts. Let me guess. Mr. Wright was to have switched the 5 with the ace to make a full house. At least that's what you were going to accuse him of doing, thereby ruining his legend. I slid it into Wright's pocket. When was this? Why, before the match, of course. While he was eating. At the Borscht Bowl Club, we served borscht and suckers. Remind me never to go there. Of course, the card was to make its grand debut during the game. Like a good borscht, a good plot must be cooked up early and allowed to thicken. And Wright lost the last hand like he was supposed to.
Hold it!
So, everything went according to plan. Exactly. The 5th ace came up, so it's obvious the switch went off without a hitch. Once the extra card was found in his pocket, Wright would be forever known as a cheat and a fraud. There are worse things to be known as, I suppose. Tell us what happened with the search. The planted card was gone. The trap failed.
Hold it!
The card disappeared? Yeah, my trump card, the 5 of hearts. Gone, without a trace. Poof! Zippo! We searched every nook and cranny. Did you? Even inside his cute little hat. But the card was nowhere to be found, is that correct? Never in my long storied career, never has Quick Fingers Orley been so readily duped? Oh, really? So, what did happen to that 5 of hearts? Don't look at me. Why don't you ask that cheating, lying, two-faced defendant? So the 5 of hearts is still missing in action. The next moment, Wright picked up a bottle and swung it!
Hold it!
Wait, isn't that a little odd? What's odd? You searched Mr. Wright, thoroughly, and found nothing, which means he didn't cheat. Which means he had no reason to strike the victim. Well? Uh-oh. What was that just now? I sensed something. Something wrong, Mr. Justice? No, nothing, Your Honor. What to do? Should I press her a little harder? Press harder! Ms. Orley, you're hiding something. What are you talking about? You... Me? Quick Fingers Orley? Hiding something? The defense will refrain from baseless accusations. I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. I did see it. Honest. I saw it when Mr. Wright hit him. I saw it when Mr. Wright hit him with my own eyes. I saw it. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? That witness, for instance, Ms. Orley. She would touch the back of her neck during certain parts of her testimony. Did you notice? Touching her neck, was it? Ugh. Whoa, what's going on? The sensation, it's coming into focus. There, that twitch, it's so clear. It's like I could perceive her habit like I couldn't before. Ugh. I really hate this portion of this game, but I don't know.
Gotcha!
Gotcha! Ms. Orley, perhaps you're unaware of this yourself. Unaware of what? Whenever you get to a certain part of your testimony, you touch the back of your neck with your left hand. My neck? So what? What indeed, Justice? I hadn't noticed anything of the sort. When she says that part of the testimony, she's subconsciously recalling something. Her body reacts to the memory and she touches her neck. I'm sure of it! A memory? Would someone care to explain what he's babbling about? This is highly unusual, but let's ask the defense. You claim the witness is remembering something. Maybe you have evidence of this memory to show us? Her habit is scratching her neck whenever she talks about the moment of the crime. So what would remind her most of the moment of the crime? Ms. Orley, whenever you recall the crime that night, you scratch your neck. I've noticed it happen when you think about the moment of the crime. There must be some reason behind this habit of yours. I believe the weapon that left an inerasable impression on your neck is this. This? No. What? Scratching her neck. The attorney's badge. Is it this? I think since this is the tutorial, we can't do any harm presenting the wrong evidence. Whenever she talks about the moment of the crime, she touches her neck. And what reminds us more of that moment than this bottle, the murder weapon? But something doesn't fit. If you were only the witness to the crime, why would that make you touch your neck like you're in pain? What's he talking about now? It was Mr. Smith, the victim, who was hit. Not you. This is a cross-examination, not a wild conjecture. The witness's habits? They're completely irrelevant. Justice. I'll admit I'm a bit confused myself. This is certainly a unique cross-examination. I'll explain later. Just trust me. Now's our only chance to break her. Ms. Orley, please testify in detail about the moment of the crime. The very moment. Yet, I am knowing nothing. Okay. We know you're not Russian. The witness will testify. Please. Now. She just likes undressing. Bah! Fine! He's the one who did it. I didn't let him out of my sight until the cops got there.
Hold it!
You seem uneasy. You try sitting up here. Her eyes are darting all over the place. I must be getting warm. Tell me, after the crime, what was the defendant like? Well, he must have been stunned by the weight of his crime. He sat in a daze at the table until the cops came. Intriguing. I believe you've gotten all the testimony you're going to get out of this witness. So, what do you think about her testimony? I'll tell you what I think. Her testimony is flawed. Is basically bogus. It contradicts the evidence. What's that? Well, show us this evidence, Mr. Justice. This evidence that you claim contradicts the testimony. She didn't let him out of her sight until the cops got there. I know there's some evidence that contradicts that. And I think it's the phone you spent.
Take that!
Ms. Orley, we have a record here that clearly contradicts what you said. It states that the police were alerted by a report from the defendant. Ugh! And we know that the defendant left the room, climbed the stairs, and made that phone call from the first floor of the Borscht Bowl Club. Ack! So, explain how you kept your eyes on the defendant when he left the room entirely. Eek! Oh, the lobster. The man who picked up a bottle and swung it that night wasn't the defendant. Showdown time. You dirty cheat! Check his pockets now! It's gone! The card's gone! You lose. Blech! Just then, Smith grabbed the bottle from next to right. And he hit me! You! Some master of cheating you turned out to be. Eek! When I came to, the victim was already dead. Is that it? That's why I couldn't reveal who I really was. If it came out that I was in league with Smith, I'd be a suspect for sure. Well, where does this leave us? Madness! This is madness! I'm dreaming! It must have been me who was hit with the bottle, and I'm imagining all of this. It appears our prosecution is at his wit's end, and frankly I can't blame him. Mr. Gavin, what do you think about this turn of events? Mr. Gavin? Sir? I believe that, as the defense in this case, we are compelled to call Ms. Orley a big, fat liar. What? 3 were in the room that night of the murder. The defendant, victim, and her. And she has a motive. A motive? Her plot foiled, the witness got into an argument with her client, Mr. Smith. And the denouement, is that how you say that? Denouement of that argument was murder. What? I'm no killer. It's a trap. Someone's trying to frame me. What tangled webs we weave when we practice to deceive. So tangled we catch ourselves in the process. Mr. Wright? Such a hasty conclusion. It's not like you, Christoph Gavin. What are you saying? Why not consider the other possibility? That there was another person in the room at the time of the murder. Right, like Mr. Wright was saying before recess. A single card was swapped into the victim's hand after the murder. And the one who swapped the card didn't know 2 colors of cards were being used. A 4th person. Ha! This theory again. Your 4th person doesn't exist. Indeed. That's why I decided to bring this case to court. Here, where there's no escape and no chance for deception. The perfect place to catch the real criminal. The real criminal? And we're in luck. A clue to the real criminal's identity was kindly provided for us. And right at the beginning of the trial, no less. What? Apollo, perhaps you know what I'm talking about. Sorry? Remember what I said. The 4th person who swapped the cards made one critical error. He or she wasn't considering the color on the backs of the cards. Right. But how could such an obvious mistake occur? The cards used for the last game were red. Yet, there's one person here in our court who thought those cards were blue. Yeah, I had that impression too. Why? Well, Apollo? Think you can figure out who it was? It's not me, I swear! Who is this 4th person? Why do I always get put on the spot like this? Let's hear what the defense has to say. Who was it? Who thought the cards used in the final game were blue?
Take that!
As I expected. Your eyes and ears are as sharp as your hair. I was right? Christoph Gavin, you were the fourth person that night. But of course Mr. Gavin knows the color of the cards. How could he? As you can see, the photo of the crime scene is black and white. You can't tell which of the cards are blue, the ones on the floor or the table. But look! You can see the colors in this photo. Yes, but when he said the cards were blue, it was well before this evidence came to light. It is true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim, yet it was only that, a game in the purest sense. A competition, Your Honor. A competition? Yes, a test of wits, silent clash of passions. Only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. Well, Christoph? Mr. Gavin? Mr. Gavin, is something the matter? Hmm? No, nothing. Excuse me. It was just so sudden. Right. You aren't seriously accusing me, are you? Oh, Christoph? You know, even I'd never take a joke this far. This has gone beyond ridiculous, beyond dumb. This is insanity. The defendant accusing his own defense attorney of murder? I assure you, I'm quite sane. But what possible connection could Mr. Gavin have to the victim? I wasn't aware that I had a connection to Mr. Smith either. Yes, but Mr. Gavin and the victim have never even met. Well, what if they have? Uh-huh? There is a possibility after all. They may have met that night before the game started. What are you suggesting? Is this the truth Mr. Wright was staying silent about? Well, only one thing to do. Mr. Wright, the defense would like to request that you testify to the court. The defense would like to request no such thing. Mr. Gavin? Testimonies must relate to the case. How could anything happen before that game of poker... How could anything happening before that game of poker be related? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Gavin. As I explained before, the defense believes that Ms. Orley... Am I to assume you speak for Mr. Justice in this? He is the defense, not you. Mr. Justice, the matter of Mr. Wright's testimony is up to you. Oh, okay. Does the court, in your opinion, need to hear Mr. Wright's testimony? I wonder what happens if I say no. I want to find out. Save state. No need. As much as I'd like to, I guess the testimony isn't related to the case, per se. You heard what the judge said, Apollo? It's your decision. Yours. Justice, you aren't seriously considering... I'm sorry, Mr. Gavin, but now that we've gotten this far, we might as well go all the way. Okay, I guess they end up doing it anyway. I was hoping it would give me a game over, but I guess you can't get a game over in the trial. Tutorial. The defense would like to request that Mr. Wright testify to the court. Very well. The defendant, Mr. Wright, will take the stand, please. Appetite before murder. That evening, Christoph and I had dinner. We sat at the table in this photograph. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress. The girl was knocked out cold, and Smith was uncontrollable. I left to call the police. When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. That's when I made another phone call to defense attorney Gavin. Mr. Gavin, you were at the Borscht Bowl Club on the night of the murder? I dined with him rather frequently. And he talked to the defendant on the phone directly after the murder? Quite against my will, I had become involved in a murder. I thought I might be in need of a lawyer, so I called him. You were planning this all along, weren't you, right? Just because you wanted to drag me into your little murder trial. The only thing I want is the truth. As I did back then, and now. I thought my office was doing you a favor when we took on your defense. It appears that I was wrong. Very well, the defense may cross-examine the witness. Justice! Sir! He's lying, and you're going to expose him. Understood, sir. Mr. Gavin versus Mr. Wright. This can't end well. Why can't I have a normal trial? Appetite for murder. They had dinner and they sat at the table.
Hold it!
You had dinner with Mr. Gavin? Yes, he dines with me at the Borscht Bowl Club quite frequently. We were enjoying a usual dinner at our usual spot, as usual. Usual? I always eat at the table closest to the piano. I see. Where Mr. Smith was sitting. So the plates and such on the table were from your dinner? Indeed, the remnants of my meal with Kristoff. We dined for 2 hours, then Kristoff left after that. Then Kristoff left. After that, Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Kristoff left.
Hold it!
5 minutes? So the two of them could have passed in the restaurant during that time? That would have been a fateful encounter, to be sure. Oh, Mr. Wright, what was it you said? Kristoff, Gavin, and Shady Smith may have met? I believe I did say that. Here I was all nervous about this meeting, and now we hear that they just passed in the hall? That does seem a little weak as a pretense for murder. Oh, it would be, if that was all that really happened. Come on, Mr. Wright. What are you hiding this time? When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress.
Hold it!
About this failed trap. Was this the same trap that Ms. Olga Orley mentioned? The plan was simple. Elegant, really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts. I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When their hands were revealed, Smith would call him out and search Wright. He would then pull out the planted card, and the trap would snap shut. You swapped the cards! Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces. Yes, a harmless prank in essence. It was by a quirk of fate that I happened to discover it. A quirk? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. The card she planted. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. An empty bottle of grape juice. The murder weapon? Yes, I rolled it up and shoved it in. The colored glass makes it hard to see. A battle of wits between the deceiver and the would-be deceived. That sounds like terrific drama. A card inside the murder weapon? That's strange. Did the police miss it in their investigation? Maybe I'll take a look. Mr. Wright, the poker head of courtroom number 3 approves of this battle of wits. I wonder if we can see it here. Oh, here we go. The bottle is completely empty. Yes. grape juice. How long has it been since I drank grape juice? Apparently it's Mr. Wright's favorite drink. I wonder how well it goes with borscht. Alright, doesn't look like we're gonna see anything. Can I check the... Oh, I can't check the badge. There's a number inscribed on the back of the badge. There are many numbers like it, but this one is mine. Proof that I'm an attorney. To tell the truth, I get a happy feeling inside just looking at it. Aww. I get happy too when I see my attorney badge. Alright. Please revise your testimony with this new information. I discovered the trap during the game and disposed of the card in the bottle.
Hold it!
Why in the bottle? I perceived my opponent's intent immediately. I'm used to entrapment, you see. I knew what was coming. Oh ho, so you struck first! I like that. I know every trick in the book. They don't work on me. At least when you get lucky and stick your hand in your pocket, they don't. The girl was knocked out cold, and Smith was uncontrollable. I left to call the police.
Hold it!
You made the call to the police from the first floor of the restaurant, correct? Exactly. Cell phones don't get a signal down in the hideout. Was anyone else on the first floor at the time? Not a soul. It was the middle of the night after all. So there, in the darkened restaurant, I called the cops. After making the call, I returned to the hideout. It didn't seem right to leave the injured waitress alone. When I returned, he was dead.
Hold it!
And when we returned, the victim was already... dead. Yes. I'll admit I was a little startled when I walked in. A little? He was bleeding from his forehead after all. I guess I'd be startled too if I walked in on a scene like that. That's when I made another phone call to defense attorney Gavin.
Hold it!
Could you explain why you called Mr. Gavin? I'd obviously gotten involved in a rather sticky affair, and I figured Kristoff's law offices would give me a friend rate for my defense fees. Ah, glad to hear you intend to pay. Oh, I'll pay in full, Kristoff. It was I who got you involved after all. You may find the price of your defense quite high, my good friend. Quite high. Is this the truth that Mr. Wright was talking about? Justice, you know what you have to do. He's lying. Expose him. Now. Yes, sir. Is he trying to tell me this testimony the truth is... I guess that's... I haven't a clue what to do, but maybe show the bottle.
Objection!
Mr. Wright, if I may? Yes? I've examined the bottle, and I don't see any card in here. No? What, Mr. Wright? Surely silence isn't all you have to say for yourself. I can't say that I know what happened to the card. I did put it in the bottle, however. Huh? Perhaps a fifth person came and took it out. Oh, and a sixth person could have helped. Mr. Gavin, Mr. Wright is your client. My apologies, Your Honor. I won't have you disparaging our investigation either. We looked inside that bottle. There was nothing. So what's going on? Is Mr. Wright hoodwinking us again? Or did the card just disappear? In any case, please continue the cross-examination. I'm afraid decisive contradictions call for decisive evidence. Oh. Push him harder, Justice. Break him! It's just you and the witness in the ring. Go for the KO. Why do I get the feeling we're not on our client's side anymore? Alright, Ran Puma is coming home, so we had to put a hold on this cross-examination. We will continue this tomorrow, I believe. What's today? Tuesday? Yes. We will be back tomorrow for more Phoenix Wright. I want to thank you guys for watching me play. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. So, take care and have a good night. Bye-bye!